access. You can go down through here, and I went to the end of it. You just get to somebody's house, and I guess that this is probably what it is. It's this half a block deep of little super compacted neighborhoods. You can see by the condition of this road, it's just a dirt knobbly road. There's not much down there but more neighborhoods. So, and I'm guessing that this is some kind of hotel under reconstruction, and probably it has control of its waterfront, but otherwise there doesn't appear to be any waterfront, at least on this side of the lake. And this is a hand-operated sugarcane press, yeah, as opposed to the metal ones, I mean electrical ones, the ones run off a generator. There is no way out of here. That's a nice old building, if it is old. It says New World Restaurant. That's a pretty impressive architecturally and size building, if it is a restaurant. It's a boxing match that all the men are here to enjoy. And down here some kind of a street market, which is certainly not uncommon. Yeah, I'm kind of moving parallel to the river now, I think, so I'm going to just explore this somewhat green area as far as it interests. They got it cordoned off this section of it, maybe to help it start to grow back or something that needed restoring. Or maybe to prevent this kind of a look. This is interesting. A large water buffalo. Haven't seen horns that big before. You know, they came that way, or is it a Brahma bull with large horns? Anyway, across the street, on top of the hill, we can't see it from here, is I think a lot, so we'll go up and take a look at that. This is the new Cambodia building, a name I've seen around Southeast Asia. I don't know where it comes from. Here, a pretty little temple type building. And a rather nice park area goes completely around here, I'm willing to bet. And stairway up. Here are a couple of Chedai, and then the really big one here. First time I've seen one of these. A very large, actually operating clock. Isn't that clever? Again, you can see what a lovely park area this is, both below and up the walkways where there are also benches and lots of shade. Tourist elephant ride. Looks like the elephant has a kind of a device in his trunk for swatting at flies on his body. Ceremonial drum. Here the murals start on the bottom, then there's a second larger course, and then another course on that bevel. This looks like a very old temple. can see not much effort's been put into this. It's just painted, whitewashed. Everything else is white with some red and there, a little bit of gold over the doors. Okay, today I'm visiting the Royal Palace, and after that I will go to the National Museum. So what we're going to see here is very big, and I guess somebody lived here. There, the huge temple, or Wihan. Very lovely gardens, because this is a national treasure, if you will. Certainly a national monument. So prohibited from going in here, so it must be an actively used building. Buddha. And down to another large building, and these cloisters along the side don't seem to have any specific function. I'm going to pan around. There's a subsidiary building of some sort, almost masked by the way angle I'm shooting with the large temple itself. But here behind the green, indicating it's a construction site, is perhaps one of the most beautiful buildings I've seen. And this may be the French Provincial. When I say most beautiful buildings, I mean that are not of a religious temple nature, and in my trip to Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. I'm just peeking through the fence with the camera in hopes that I can pick up some of the beautiful detail here. That's all iron, wrought iron, it looks like. The building we just looked at is the pavilion of Napoleon III. So now I'm going to enter this large yellow square area, and look what's in there. Here, this doorway, a rather intricate bit of ironwork, although it's not wrought iron, but it is very intricate. And there, an aspera, it looks like. Looking back towards the entrance, that's the original formal entrance. That's not the one the tourists get to take now. Very elaborate and huge building. Notice the four faces of Buddha at the top. It's interesting here how the shrubbery has been done in the form of royal umbrellas. It's a large and impressive and well-maintained complex. It's interesting to look at that spout there, because that looks very much like the spout on the pedestal of a linga statue in one of the old temples at Angkor Wat in that area, or at least the ones that were of linga heritage. It's interesting, it looks like the flying what's-his-faces there that hold up the ceilings have purposely been left as cement to probably save money, number one, but since it does offer another color option. The pans are just rather interesting because it's such a large complex. That's that walled area that I did not go into because it said you shouldn't go back. You want to keep the tourists flowing like some kind of Disney ride, but probably practical. You're not allowed to take pictures inside, so I'm not going to waste my time going inside. Again, we want your money, but we really don't want you going any place in particular, like this entire garden zone over here. Jeez. I love the hypocrisy. And now I'm inside the big yellow square. Here, this cloister area, for lack of a better term, is, as I've seen before, filled with murals of the equivalent of the Indian Ramayana, or either that or the other great epic, which has fallen to less use than the Ramayana, apparently. This is no doubt a statue of one of the kings. They all had their kings. Here, a rather large stupa in white, and its companion at the other side. It's interesting that these have been allowed to erode away the lower portion, and it appears that they're doing nothing to maintain the upper portion. Again, you take the combination of the bad economy, the Khmer Rouge destruction, and elimination of the Khmer Rouge just a few short 12 years ago, less than 12 years ago, and the rampant corruption in this country. There's probably very little money left over. A place like this has to be one of the great draws in Cambodia at large, other than Angkor Wat, Siem Reap draw of tourists and the tourist dollar. Here's some early preserved nagas that look like they're made out of metal. In fact, their metal section's about 3 feet long. Where they were used, I don't know. Unlike the European and the South American statues that you see of great persons, these are not normally depicted as warriors, but a little doubtful on this one. And there's a theoretically a tradition behind the number of feet that are off the ground as to what it implies about the life and the death of the rider. Here, another look at a pair of exterior entry doors that have been glassed for protection, but they're that iron worked doors. These are painted white, looks like. I'm going to pan down through the detail on this stupa. Notice that these frames are somewhat like the frames we saw in some of the temples in Siem Reap, but didn't have any iconography inside them. Riding an elephant, a three-headed elephant. That's a particular form of Shiva, the primary god. Again, the same character. And each of these characters has a name and a function in this religion. I just don't recall them off the top of my head. And that's a companion of that small building we looked at the detail of. Smaller building, I shouldn't say small building. I'm guessing that this place is laid out somewhat symmetrically, so any building we've seen prior to now, we're probably seeing a duplicate of it. Some little mouse or lizard has made the mistake of moving around when that cat's here. If they've gone to the effort of at least photographing all of these panels in sequence, so they can restore them someday. This building looks like it's a museum, perhaps a library. Huh. This looks like a large casket. These are probably quite rare. Some kind of carved wood, perhaps an ebony, of a lying Buddha. More bronze, painted. Perhaps Shiva. Notice the stylistic differences in the peak on the head, for example, and the way the hands are used here, either two hands, palms facing us, one hand, palm facing us. These are different forms that the Buddha takes. This one holding the bowl for his begging and mourning ritual. Notice on these two, one has the right hand up while the left hand is in its normal lap position, while the other has a very traditional position of its right hand with the fingers just touching the surface of the earth. It's an interesting wand-looking device. Look at the facial expressions, the happy, gentle smile. Such a difference from going into the Catholic churches where the medieval art is so horrifying, so brutal, designed to scare the jumping Jesus out of you and leave only the non-jumping Jesus in you, frightened to death. Look at the earlobes on the Buddha there, and here signs of power, etc., etc. Well, the tourists are excited by something over there. And they're using this cluster area just to warehouse various things. Old pictures of probably past kings and queens. That man there probably having lost his leg from a mine, perhaps. This is the man-made mountain, if you will. Notice that icon. It's one of the forms of Shiva. This is the top of the man-made mountain. Notice the Buddhas are covered in fabric to keep them warm. So this is the hottest time of the year. Shiva with the snake twined around her shoulders, but the symbolic 7 cobra heads on her head. And these are little stoves, and they cook little eggs on there. I mean, I don't know what kind of pigeon eggs or something, but I've seen it in the marketplace. Examples of country traditional homes of wood on stilts. A little cookhouse in the back, perhaps. These are some little toy or model fish weirs or traps. See these all along the rivers. These might be Angkorian costume from perhaps the original days, if anybody really knows. Certainly reflects the temperature here, at least for the men. These may be paintings from, or copies from actual murals, or maybe made from referencing those murals. But again, that's one of the great values of those wall murals, is that you can learn the details of a historical time period. This may, for example, give an idea of somewhat what it would have looked like on top of Terrace of the Elephants or Terrace of the Leper King. Although purportedly they have large wooden structures on most tops of those terraces. Traditional costumes suggested daily colors. Blackish red for Saturday, blue for Friday, Thursday green. I like Thursday, like green, that color. The red, Monday dark yellow, Wednesday yellowish green, and Tuesday violet. This looks like some kind of paddle wheel, but what it was used for I don't know, unless it was to gather string like in making yarn. You can see that there are two holes, one at either end in the center, for some kind of axle. And who knows what this is, they don't label anything. But it has a serrated edge on the front here. It was used for some kind of a cutting tool. Here's some folk dance costume monkeys. Some of the religious icons. Here's a considerably more sophisticated loom than I had seen before. I wonder if one or two people used it. There appears to be a seating down here, so if we would have maybe one or two people sitting here flipping the, whatever you call those things, back and forth, the warps. Some fantastical dance costumes. These I saw on at least two of the great dance sequences I videoed in Indonesia. This is an intricate and elaborate costume. I think these are probably wood carved bowls. And some other kind of container there. Perhaps it held cosmetics. Here's some more antique looms. Unfortunately left out here in the weather, although they are underneath a floor, but still prey to it as you see from the plastic. Here a case full of detail that looks like it probably would be used on as an architectural detail. Notice how elaborate this loom is. It has its own nagas. Some architectural detail being warehoused. This intricate wood carving reminds me of the ones I saw in the castle. I think it was Krakow. And they did have the capacity to turn stone, probably wood. Now, how old this is, I don't know. Here's some steel monk bowls. They don't show the evidence of having been made like the ones in Bangkok, though. Maybe that one does. Maybe I can see a hint of it. The sections that formed it, but I can't see it here. Silver elephants. Don't think they served any purpose other than a decoration. I'm sure a lot of them, for whatever the reason. Maybe they were given as gifts to the royal family. Here are gold ones, I suspect those are gold plated. Marble elephants. Maybe one of the kings had an affection for collecting elephants. Some old helmets. Metal floral directions. Metal floral decorations. Gold leaf and silver. This is interesting because these are some actual elephant seats, if you will. All of them covered. Except for this one. But they're large enough for a Thai person to recline on them, I would guess. And these some of the fans that the kings were kept cool with, most along shafts so they could be reached. Look like they're symbolic spears that might be carried in allusion to the old days. Here we can see those spears. This is probably a picture of a relief on stone somewhere. Probably one I've seen. My guess is this is Angkor Wat at first floor. A very elaborate processional chair. Remember, one of the standard positions for people in Eastern Asia to sit is in the with their feet tucked underneath their butts, or their feet crossed and them sitting on their feet. I thought these look familiar. They're the posts that would be used in an animal or an elephant corral. They look rather diminutive, don't they? Here's another example of an elephant carrying one of these, although this is not the harness that was used, that's for sure. I don't know what this row of houses are for, except that I think people are even here living in them, because there's evidence of clothes and other personal debris like that helmet hanging from them and hanging from the windows. What they originally were, I don't. Here's an interesting light standard. This might be a rice grinder or something like that, or something that separates the rice. Pestle. Form for probably baked goods of some sort, although you wouldn't put that in an oven. Some old carts, traditional carts. I'm guessing that the closeness or proximity of this to this which I've seen earlier, and a couple more examples of it, were for holding yarn. In fact, you can see that probably something was on here like that right here, and then wrapped to there something. These are finely made. This stuff today is, of course, made with current materials. This would have been some kind of a press. I've seen an example of it before. This lady is here as part of the exhibits. Here's a couple of pictures, looks like Angkor Wat, that are done on what I think are reed. So we can see that this actually was used by just one person. There she has 2 or 3 foot pedals that she's able to use also. This is an interesting device. I have no clue what it's for. Here a really elaborate royal boat, if you will, boat wagon, probably pushed by supporters. And inside the grounds of the National Museum, which is a very pretty building, very simply executed. Notice the pediment there is simply all painted in black. It certainly was not how it was intended. And the entire building is in red, although that does seem reminiscent of the color that we saw at some of the temples that still remained on the walls. Placed it in the garden, so I'm not going to waste my time in there. This is the primary reason why Southeast Asia will never become first world nation. Because there are far too many people that labor is absolutely dirt cheap. These guys may get paid, somebody told me, somewhere like $8 a month for this kind of labor. And these guys will lay all this out. They'll pick it up in bags, bring it down here, spread it out by hand, and then that big rolling machine down there will press it into the ground. But as long as that's what the value of labor is, these guys are mechanics for probably any kind of small machine or engine. They'll take your bicycle, they'll clean it all up for you, repair the brakes, repair any other part of the system. Here they've got, looks like a press for putting in or taking out seals or bearings. Plus they've probably got a welder on there, an air blower and so forth. Sugarcane drink. And these fellows are the charcoal guys. They'll break it up into smaller chunks for the little hibachi type stoves. They're all covered, always covered in black. Probably like chimney sweeps of Britain. This man carries bananas from wherever he lives to sell to the market. Here are all the cyclos, that's what they call them here. And there are lots of them here in Phenom Penh. Probably one of the last places you'll see a lot of them. It just illustrates another example of why this will never be first world, because there are so many people here and the economy is so bad, if you will, so low, that people buy either tuk-tuks or cyclos ad nauseum without any idea of the competition, without any concern for the competition they have. So the people who make the money are the people who sell the tuk-tuks, sell the motorcycles and the scooters and the cyclos. They're the people that make the money, and the banks who finance probably much of it. And yet this place is riddled with expensive cars. Lexus, Cadillacs, Benz. Yesterday I saw 3 Hummers.